Now, in Bangladesh, the economist and civil society leader Muhammad Yunus has been named as the head of the country's caretaker government. The appointment meets a key demand of student leaders who helped topple former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. Hasina resigned on Monday and fled the country following weeks of protests against her government.
He's long been regarded as one of Bangladesh's leading citizens. Now Muhammad Yunus has been asked to lead his country out of crisis. The economist and banker won the Nobel Peace Prize for his microfinance concept, which is credited with helping impoverished people around the world. Naming him as head of an interim government was a key demand of the student protesters.
We talked to Dr. Muhammad Yunus. He has agreed to take this responsibility to save Bangladesh.
On Tuesday, citizens gathered at the National Parliament building after the legislative body was dissolved by the president, who called for the restoration of calm. A day earlier, protesters stormed to the chamber, demanding the resignation of Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. Now her official residence is awaiting a new occupant after Hasina fled the country, ending her 15-year rule. Curious citizens wandered through the ransacked rooms where Hasina clung to power, as more than 300 people were killed in protests which were brutally suppressed by security forces.
We sincerely hope everyone gets justice. Every death must be accounted for.
As Bangladesh mourns the many killed in the unrest, changes are flowing fast. Former opposition leader Khaleda Zia has been pardoned and released from house arrest, one of thousands of critics detained under the previous government.
I think the next ruler of the country should take lessons from the students that if anyone becomes a corrupted traitor and gets involved in unsocial activities or takes any decision against the country, they will face the same fate. We want them to chart the future, keeping the country in mind.
The burnt-out office of the former ruling party shows how quickly Sheikh Hasina's legacy has been turned to ash. Many Bangladeshis are celebrating and awaiting the start of a new era.
I spoke earlier to Zyma Islam, a journalist with the Daily Star newspaper in Dhaka. She told me why the 84-year-old Muhammad Yunus is the person the protesters wanted to see as head of an interim government.
I think, first and foremost, there is the fact that he is nationally and internationally celebrated for his achievements. And that is, I think, one of the major reasons why he was selected, is that this person has proven that through what he has done in his life, that he is a worthy person to lead this country. But beyond that, there's one other reason, is that he is an apolitical person. He has not been linked with any mainstream political parties as of yet. And that was a big reason why people want him, because we are tired of the mainstream political parties and the way that they have been governing the country for the last many years. And last time we had a public uprising of this nature was in 1990, which gave rise to the parliamentary democracy that we currently have. We want a fresh start. That's what we want.
And India has reportedly evacuated all non-essential staff and their families from its diplomatic missions in neighboring Bangladesh. That is after the weeks of unrest that forced Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina to quit and flee. Reuters quoting two Indian government sources saying that all Indian diplomats remain in Bangladesh. So let's get more on this from our correspondent, Shalu Yadav in Delhi. Shalu, give us an update on this story.
Well, Claire, there were about 19,000 Indians who resided in Bangladesh before all of this unfolded over the last 3 days. And the Foreign Minister of India shared yesterday that 9,000 of those were students and they came back to safety over the last few weeks. But he stopped short of sharing the details of any other evacuation plans for the rest of the Indians that remained in the country. He, in fact, went on to say that he expected the host government to look after the safety of Indians citizens and its diplomatic staff in the country. But we also knew that until yesterday, the Indian Air Force was on standby in the bordering state of northeastern Indian state of Assam. And now we're hearing that that all the non-essential diplomatic staff, along with their families, have been evacuated from the embassy and the consulates. But the main diplomats, they continue to remain in the country, and the mission is reportedly functioning, Claire.
And is it possible to give us some insights into the reasoning behind this decision?
Well, you see, India as well as Indians are seen as pro-Sheikh Hasina. And that was the reason why we saw this kind of anti-India sentiment during the protests in Bangladesh over the last few weeks. Because, the Bangladeshis felt that Indian government did not do enough to stop Sheikh Hasina's authoritarian regime and the atrocities that were committed by her government. So naturally, there are legitimate fears around the safety of Indians who remain in the country, as the law and order situation is still out of hand. We've been hearing reports of mobs, out on rampage, not just attacking the homes of Indians, but also the minority community of Hindus who lives there, which is also of concern to the Indian government. The Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar yesterday also expressed concerns around the safety of the minority community living in Bangladesh. There have been reports of their homes being targeted, their businesses have been looted, and their places of worship have been attacked. Claire, Bangladesh is a country where Islam is the state religion, and Hindus living in the country are viewed as the supporters of the secular party of Awami League, the party of Sheikh Hasina. And so they've been, targeted by the Islamic radicals time and again. This is not the first time. But we're also hearing reports of the young Muslims coming forward and forming a chain of safety around Hindus' homes as well as their places of worship. Before, there's a let-up in the situation on the roads in Bangladesh, and until there is a semblance of safety in the streets of Bangladesh, the Hindus, they continue to remain, inside their homes, and they're locked up. And, the Indian government is closely watching the situation, Claire.
DW's Shalu Yadav, many thanks for that update. Let's get the very latest from Zyma Islam, a journalist with the Daily Star newspaper, joining us today from Dhaka. Welcome. So 84-year-old Muhammad Yunus is really a towering figure of Bangladesh. He's been called in to head an interim government. Why was he the person that protesters wanted to see in this role?
I think, first and foremost, there is the fact that he is nationally and internationally celebrated for his achievements. And that is, I think, one of the major reasons why he was selected, is that this person has proven that through what he has done in his life, that he is a worthy person to lead this country. But beyond that, there's one other reason, is that he is an apolitical person. He has not been linked with any mainstream political parties as of yet. And that was a big reason why people want him, because we are tired of the mainstream political parties and the way that they have been governing the country for the last many years. And last time we had a public uprising of this nature was in 1990, which gave rise to the parliamentary democracy that we currently have. We want a fresh start. That's what we want.
So someone who's really seen as above the fray of politics here. The president now, of course, has dissolved parliament just this Tuesday. Students demanding elections to take place within 3 months. How likely does that seem?
It's actually embedded in the law that it has to be within 3 months. And if you don't do it within 3 months, then it's a violation of the law. What we're expecting that in 3 months, there's going to be a mushrooming of political parties and political sentiments of all sorts. And we hope that what has previously been an empty political space with only one major ruling party making all the shots is now going to have a pluralistic it's going to be a pluralistic space where all kinds of ideas and political ideologies will be accommodated, and that will be our election.
So what are the most important issues then that this interim government will need to address before heading into elections to make sure that things run smoothly?
Some of the few things that this government will have to do, they have to overhaul the law enforcement system. So, for example, right now, I'm actually inside the cantonment and we are in front of the offices of the intelligence agency here, where families of those who had lost, families of those who victims of enforced disappearances who are reportedly being held in this headquarters. They're all here and they are demanding that their family members be returned back to them. Enforced disappearance was a huge issue during the last regime, where you would get picked up and then simply disappeared, and no one knew where you have gone. You'd never hear from that person again. Just yesterday, 2 people were released who had been held for as long as 8 years. So family members are once again rekindling hope that they may be able to meet their loved ones again. This is the kind of overhaul we need. We don't want enforced disappearance anymore. We want things to go by the law and law enforcers to act by the law.
Well, thank you so much for speaking with us today on DW News. That is Zyma Islam with the Daily Star in Dhaka.